For play and self, I chose to concentrate on obtaining the shape of my name, which is a sound wave. The meaning of my name is also very essential. I'm a member of the Kalenjin tribe in Kenya, which has a long history of agricultural endeavors. My tribe's naming tradition is based on the moment of birth, which is always linked to environmental variables. My name means one who was born at dusk, as the cows are being returned to their shed. This artwork has an emphasis on the setting, and I wanted to immortalize it in a unique and creative way. I got this idea by looking at Amrata Sethi's work, who is an Indian designer in Dubai, and she concentrates on soundwave art and creates the word Dubai and makes artworks within the soundwave. And I find that to be a very interesting and beautiful approach of immortalizing. In response to the theme of play and time, I created a short video depicting several points in time from the same perspective. This was done in order to study the rhythm in human behavior by observing a place that was once empty and then filled with a crowd. People are time-based beings, and movement is time. Repetitive motion improves our ability to see patterns and comprehend human behavior. This was inspired by an artist by the name of Tamesha Faucha, who focuses on time-lapse art. In response to play and place, I took a walk down Saxon Street and was able to discover unusual areas where I could be creative and doodle on the tarmac to make pedestrians smile. The sensation I had following this procedure astounded me. It made me feel invigorated and rebellious. It was wonderful to reconnect with my inner child. I also enjoyed deliberately looking for commonplace items that I might turn into art. Observing my surroundings, from gaps in the walls to posts, let me realize how my surroundings can be enhanced to produce art. Huizinga highlights the notion that all play has meaning, that it has sense, and that it transcends in rules of play. All play is meaningful is a delightfully complicated statement that we can interpret in various ways. I decided to use public space to produce drawings that make the hearts of pedestrians and locals happy, but also pose some questions within themselves with provocative statements. I decided to tackle artificial synesthesia, which is the process of deliberately evoking or induced sensory joining in which the real information of one sense is accompanied by a perception in another sense. The often forgotten people who control these visuals are visual jockeys, and they are artists that create a harmonized visual component to further the audio performance of the DJ. This type of work is used as projections in concerts, and it's made me have the assurance that if called upon on such a project, I'd be able to materialize it. For play and object, I created a game of imagination in which you create a story out of random magazine pages and modeling clay to bring your characters to life. I was inspired by Nick Park, who is the creator of Wallace and Gromit, and this type of art has its vision in commercial. In response to play and forces, I wanted to explore generative art through force from my hand. I found a generative text site and played with it, which was lots of fun. Using the force of my hands with relative pressure points, the scale of the sentences changed, creating emphasis in some words. This made me realize ways I can incorporate this within animation by creative emphasis in text and changing the meaning completely. For play in nature, I created Love is Life font. Creatives often find their inspiration from nature, and I am one of them. I've always been fascinated by how nature blends in forms design, like branding, level design, to create a mood, aura of a film or a game. The styling of elements gives a glimpse of the mood and what to anticipate. I was strongly inspired by the typography within the movie Suicide Squad, which had various points that had brilliant typography that blended with the backgrounds. I was also inspired by Stefan Stagmeister, who is an Austrian graphic designer and storyteller who creates amazing typographic designs through everyday objects. Creating this font was easy and hard at the same time. I went and collected flowers and vegetation in bloom, and I sourced them from a little park that I found within the city. I carefully selected the stems, testing their malleability and strength, and then I created the font randomly by checking what parts formed letters and curves. After taking various photographs, I selected the best ones and edited them further in Photoshop. Creating this work was spontaneous and fun. I even got to discover where I would be getting my free year supply of rosemary. Understanding that nature plays a big role in animation and games, I learned that I can blend my scenes better with typography that emulates the world it is rather than contrast the work with plain computer generated fonts. Aesthetically, engaging players and viewers is equally important in enabling the success of a work. With Play and Body, Duncan and Maggie, two of my peers, and I cooperated, and we considered how we could use our actions to recall our memories. And we came to the conclusion that we would instruct each other. And the method was that each one of us was to practice our actions, and the final performance would be done without our instructor, who would then tell us what our actions meant. This process was quite intimate, and it was beautiful to connect with my peers in such an interesting way. And I did not realize how our actions could tell so much of a deeper story. This is great for storytelling in animation and also in games as in recall moments. This is a memory of me coming home to my lovely dog. And when I get in and I get to hug my dog and we have this intimate moment, and then I'll remember that that it needs to get fed, so I feed them. This relationship between me and my dogs is quite important to me because I spent the whole year with my dogs and they were a very good support system. They mean the world to me. So my favorite memories always include my dogs. By abstracting the party light projector, I was able to observe the patterns it creates, and it was fun to experiment with it on various surfaces, as it sometimes likened brushstrokes from a painting. This was a lovely and diversified answer that made me fall even more in love with light projections. I've rekindled my urge to learn Touch Designer for 3D projection mapping. When I think about stillness, I think of minimal movement and soothing sounds. This made me think of spaces that were once highly occupied and then suddenly devoid of occupants. There was a sense of abandonment in the locations we frequented during the pandemic. It made me think of an apocalyptic movie and the end of the world. The halting or ending of our gatherings in public spaces, such as airports, hotels, tourist attractions, and athletic events, marks a break in the flow of daily life. Empty public areas expose the delusion that we are a necessary part of life. I made a short animation depicting the situation of an abandoned swing set, which hints at occupation but revels in quiet.